Now we're live.
Is this thing on?
Not doing a countdown, man. We're just going cold today. Cold turkey. No giving time for people to come in. We're not doing that little countdown so people get the notification and say, hey, look, these guys are on. They're going to be talking about the Bears. Let's go check that out. No, we're going cold because we're cold-blooded, baby.
And Brian Gilmore in the chat, he applied that logic to the chatters. He already went cold. He's got his like in before the stream even started. So welcome in, everyone.
I dig it. Robin, too. Victor Perez, welcome in. Trapakipa and Mitch Osborne, some of the loyals, some of the faithfuls.
Welcome
You
in,
guys
gentlemen.
won't be disappointed tonight, I'll tell you that much. This is going to be a good show. I'm putting high expectations out there, but my guy Karl is in the house. And so far, Karl, I'm going to tell you, I'm getting warm reception about you being on the show, Karl. I'm getting very high regards for you, buddy.
Now, in my tiny little bubble, right? Like my tiny bubble actually has expanded to 400 subscribers, which blows my mind. Because when I think about this thing, like how many people watch the video, right? I have a short that has 45,000 views. And I know it's probably doubled, but even if you split that in half, can you imagine a room with 22,000 people in it?
That's insane.
Or like all the Masonites, the Adam Mason Nation, all 10,000 of you in one room together? That's terrifying to me.
Well,
so I had 400 today. Thank you so much for that, guys. I see some comments. There are some people in the live stream comments that, not the live chat, but the afterwards, right? I'll go back and look at that just because I want the feedback too. And a lot of people have some negative opinions, and that's fine. I would say any opinion is very valuable, so thank you for sharing regardless.
Karl, I'm going to tell you this. As this platform's gotten bigger, you are not going to make everybody happy. And
yeah, I know.
I have I say this all the time, so you guys just know what to expect from this show. I have a very strong opinion. I'm not afraid of that opinion, and I will voice that opinion. And you're welcome to disagree with me. Just be ready for me to give my rebuttal. But nobody says I'm right. I'm not right. Who knows who's right? I just do my best to try to do my in-depth research and have some fun here and enjoy this with you guys. So we're having a good time.
Especially in a space where sometimes there isn't a right answer necessarily. It's your opinion, right? So that's what people have to realize. We're not professionals. Adam's a lot closer to being a professional than myself. But at the end of the day, we're just talking football, and it's our educated, if not opinions, if anything. So
Jack O'Connell, man, that's very appreciated, man. It's past midnight in the UK. Would I miss Adam Mason's stream? No chance. Appreciate that.
Now, Jack, I need to ask Jack. He put the military time in the chat. How do you say that when speaking to someone? Do you say it's 003?
I've heard different places. 003, 003? Yeah. You got to
tell us. I would love to hear Jack's
opinion. Spell it out,
on
Jack.
That,
we got to hear from you. Tammy Eben, welcome in. Mark Velsetolote. Man, I'm going to butcher some names, but I got to put it on here because I did. Bear down, boys and girls. Appreciate that. Guys, we are going to do the nerdy analytical stuff is why you like this channel. We're going to do that tonight. I haven't noticed that I'm putting on some more weight the more I sit behind this mic. You guys are making me fat. We're gonna have to get on a workout regimen while
you unironically told me how much you think you weigh, so maybe we should for the members we'll do a live weigh-in, see what you're at.
I know exactly how much I weigh because I went to the doctor this week. All right, Mark says 0300.
There you
go. That would be 3 o'clock in the morning, wouldn't it? 0300? Wouldn't 0300?
Actually, yeah, spot on. We'd say 12:03. No, that is normal.
That is normal. 12:03. We just thought you said 003 because military time. So, from the highlight of the show, from the title of the show, we are going to go over the salary cap today. You're going to hear different things about where the salary cap spans. We're also going to continue on with our 11-part series leading up to the draft, and we're getting really close to some important things. In fact, let's bring this up. Not this one. Go to the next one. Here's the dates coming up. So it already happened on the 18th. Players can be tagged and franchised. Don't worry about that for the Bears because there's no one to franchise or tag or transition. Because if you franchise someone, they're going to be the top 5, average of the top 5 players paid at that position. And if you transition someone, it's average of the top 10 players at that position. And there's no one that's a free agent for the Bears that's worthy of being a top 5, top 10 paid player. There were rumors of, who was it, Tevin Jenkins? That's not going to happen. He's not.
Adam, may I expound on the Tevin Jenkins potential cap?
Yep, nail it.
Franchise tag. Mm-hmm. So what I learned this week was that when it pertains to an offensive lineman, whether it's Tevin Jenkins, more notably Trey Smith, that average of the top 5 positions for offensive linemen is the
All,
group. We're
all
not
linemen.
talking about the highest paid centers, the highest paid guards. We're talking about all of them. So when you've got offensive tackles making $28 million a year, that tag for these guards only increases that. Hence why the breaking news essentially a couple days ago, the Chiefs are not going to use a transition or franchise tag on Trey Smith. He's going to hit the open market, boys.
And it's interesting because it's only that way with the offensive line. The defensive line is segregated at defensive tackles and defensive ends. Like they do separate them for their
And that
individual positions. So that's interesting.
it makes sense to me because when you think of offensive line, I've always thought that it's 5 equals 1, right? You have to have good cohesion to be a good unit. You have your standout players, but like when you think of the Rams and Aaron Donald, he was always a Hall of Famer from the jump, but his teammates maybe weren't as good. So that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. You aren't going to see any of your centers transition or franchise for that reason alone. Centers don't go for more than 12, 13 million, which is nice for the Bears because that's a position of need. So we can get one. It's not going to cost $30 million. But one of the things we'll get into today is it really worth it to pay anybody on the offensive line $24 million, 23, 22, 21? Is it? Karl's shaking his head. Yes, I'm going to shake my head. No.
In a vacuum, Adam, like if Trey Smith was already on the Bears, would we pay him that much to keep him if we had the all-pro center and guard next to him like the Chiefs do currently, right? Maybe not at that point. But if we're talking about acquiring blue-chip talent from a different roster that's hitting the open market where everyone else would have to do the same, it absolutely makes sense. And we're going to touch on the increased cap, so...
We're not even willing to pay Tevin Jenkins 10 to 13 million, according to fans. Fans don't want to pay Tevin Jenkins. So what makes you think we would pay?
Hold on.
Okay. we're going to get dicey into it.
A little PFF monster told me that a great framework for a Tevin Jenkins contract is going to mirror the player that was drafted in the same draft as Tevin Jenkins in a similar position with a similar rollout phase in the sense that this player started at tackle and moved to guard. Sam Cosmi. That AAV on Sam Cosmi's contract is coming out to about $18 million a year, man. So as I've said all along, Tevin Jenkins, someone's going to see Tevin Jenkins and offer him money that he cannot deny, in my opinion. Whether that's the Detroit Lions, someone who's going to take a really good, borderline good offensive line and want to make it great, the strength of their entire team, someone's going to pay Tevin Jenkins, man. I'm sure of it.
Here's my ideal scenario for the Bears. Okay, this is if the Bears were a perfect franchise and we were just the pinnacle franchise everyone wanted to be like. We would have these great players that had built up, like the Trey Smiths, like Kevin Zeitlers. These guys, we just have these great players on the line, and we've drafted these players to learn behind them, and then we allow these Trey Smiths and these Kevin Zeitlers to go. Because then we get comp picks for them and we continue the cycle and we bring up the rookies that have been learning underneath them and they become the new stars. And then the new comp picks come and become new stars behind them. And we just have this glorious vision of, the line and then the churning them through a process of development. It's glorious. But right now we're sitting with nothing. Bupkis. We got Bupkis.
As it pertains to Trey Smith, when you're a team that is on the up and up and has a solidified franchise quarterback and a good roster around him, you can afford to draft players who had a second-round grade and were bumped down to the 6th round because of blood clot issues. You can afford to take more risks like that. Yeah, we can afford to take risks like that. But right now, a Chicago Bears team who's at the bottom of the NFC North, I think you have to play it a little bit more safe.
And safe means to you?
Paying Trey Smith like a quarterback.
Paying big money and then drafting behind them because we didn't develop our own guys? Is that what you're saying?
Well, once we have the starters in place, then we can start to take some risks after we're an established team. But we've got to get there first. Stepping stones.
There's no right or wrong to this, and I can agree with
exactly.
you. But I also agree that Kevin Zeitler is a higher graded player who has done better over a longer period of time than Trey Smith. Sometimes I get into this feeling that we're overhyping Trey Smith because he's the youngest, best guy in this market. Is there any truth to that, Karl? That maybe he's being because he wasn't number 1 or 2. He's not Landon Dickerson. He's not even Kevin Zeitler last year. Kevin Zeitler had a better year. You can argue that Kevin Zeitler had players around him making him better, but who's the best center in the entire NFL? Creed Humphrey, and it's not even close. If you say
That's
anything
correct.
but Creed Humphrey, I'll pull
The
up
Baltimore. The Baltimore center's pretty good. We just
All right, now
lost
we're
one
gonna
of the best
we're gonna
centers
have to pull
ever
up
in
the
Jason
stats and tape
Kelsey.
now.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. It's Creed Humphrey all day. He's the best center, bar none, right? But in the same breath, who's the right tackle? Right tackle's a terrible player. If the Chiefs had Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, I think that the Chiefs win the Super Bowl this year, right? So it goes both ways. If you've got a good tackle to the right of him, if you've got a good right tackle next to Trey Smith, maybe he's going to play even better. Who knows?
Why would we pay money to an injury-prone player? I'm assuming you're talking about Tev. Yeah, they're talking about Tev and the.
I know you're not talking about Trey Smith or Kevin Zeitler because, as Adam likes to say, those guys are Iron Men.
Well, there's always risk with anybody, and injuries always happen. That's part of the concern of signing someone to a $24 million contract, right? I mean, you do that instead of leveling out your playing field and getting 6 really good players instead of 1 really awesome player and 3 really good players and then scraping the bottom of the barrel. Then you're risking that 1 player going down, and you're kind of in the same boat we were in last year, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're spot on there. Again, I'll just bring it up. I mean, if we want to maximize our investment in our 10th overall pick, we traded back. 10th overall pick, Darnell Wright. How would you do that? You'd put a multiplier next to him, and maybe Darnell Wright, best case right now, goes from a fringe Pro Bowler to legitimately the all-pro right tackle if he's allowed to have one of the better guards in the entire NFL next to him.
Who were you
goes
talking
for the
about,
center.
though? Who are you talking
What?
about?
Trey
Right
Smith.
guard. What about Kevin Zeitler? Kevin Zeitler's half the cost and a better graded player consistently over time with more experience who can teach him more. I
Right.
mean,
He wouldn't be there for longer. I don't know how many years he's got left.
not longer with the Bears, but he's been there longer in the NFL. He's got more experience. He can share
You're not
more
wrong.
with Darnell Wright.
Well, now we're getting into the weeds. Darnell Wright and Trey Smith, I think, played together
That's what
in
we want to do.
college.
We want to do that on this show. We want your guys' opinions on the chat there because there is no right or wrong here. Whatever the Bears do in 2.5 weeks from now, no one knows what's going to happen yet. And if they sign Trey Smith, everyone should be excited. If they sign Kevin Zeitler, everyone should be excited. If we re-sign Tevin Jenkins, everyone should be excited because the fact is he is a great player. Hopefully they have a really good backup plan and they draft someone really high off the boards to be able to come in and be that safety net just in case. But I think one thing that you and I talked about before is ideally, and let's pull this up actually. Oh, let's pull this up. Let's find the right place. Sorry, we weren't prepared for this. Boom, boom, boom. Right here. So this is what the Bears have needs for, okay? So you got your left guard, center, right guard, wide receiver, running back, nose tackle, defensive end, linebacker, and long snapper. Now, some of those are debatable. Some of those might not be as deep a need as a starter, as some people are saying. Some people don't think Andrew Billings is a backup nose tackle. I personally do. So I have that we need a nose tackle as a starter. Some people might see DeMarcus Walker as a starting defensive end. There won't be many, but some people will think he's a starting defensive end. So we don't need another starter. We just need to draft another one and develop. But those are the 9 spots we have needing a starter. And we'll go into the salary cap in just a minute, guys. We've got this salary cap that's a limited finite amount, okay, whatever it is. Now, we can agree to disagree that the salary cap is fake and you can create whatever you want out of that. Reality is there is some bounds and limits to it at some point. If we want to dig ourselves into a hole 5 years in the future, we can exhaust this thing and make it crazy this year.
That's all I wanted to say was that not the ramifications, but essentially the salary cap, how creative can you get with it? That's the limit to it, is your creativity.
And I think people are starting to realize parts of what the salary cap entail now. I promise we're going to get to the news of how it's increased. This exact time last year is when they announced the salary cap. So it should be any day. I think it was on the 23rd last year. What they've done in the NFL, in fact, let's just go there. Let's just go there.
I'm pretty sure this news has been finalized, Adam. I don't know if that's what you were just suggesting.
It's a memo from them saying the range, but it's not giving the exact amount. So they will give the exact amount within the next. It's always this time at the end of February that they give the exact amount that we were going to go over this. We're going to show let's do this real quick. The Bears posted on here 2025 coaching staff is set. There's Ben Johnson, Dennis Allen, Declan Doyle, Richard Hightower. Sorry, it's zoomed in so you guys don't see all the other stuff on Twitter with it. Antoine Randall, Matt Aponte, JT Barrett, Eric Bieniemy, Anthony Blevins, Zach Gable, Kyle Devin, Jim Dre, Jeremy Garrett, Matt Giordano, Al Harris. Look at that badass picture, man. Dude.
That's what I was trying to tell you backstage, man. I'll get a mural of that happily.
Wait, let's go back to where is our offensive line coach? Where'd he go? Maybe we haven't got.
He's towards the end. Yeah, right there, Dan Ruchar, bottom middle.
Here we go. So let me scroll that up a little bit. Kevin Koch, Cannon Matthews, Kenny Norton III, Robbie Piazzo, and Dan Rochar. Man, this guy will shape. I mean, he's got a blank canvas. He has Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones, Karan Amagaji, maybe Ryan Bates. Other than that, he has got a blank canvas to bring all these guys in, develop, work with. I mean, he's got experience. He can bring the guys in the league that are free agents that he likes. He's basically got a blank canvas to do whatever he wants.
And Dan Ruchar has a tendency of bringing in a quality, high-valued center. So that's something to look out for here. I don't know if there's a center that is willing or worthy of going in the top, 50. But I think that's what I saw, the metric from Dan Ruchar, is that he brought in Michigan's great Cesar Ruiz to play center, as well as another player before or after by 1 year. I can't remember the name.
We're going to pull
the
this
Saints
up
center.
Here. Of course, it's going to be slow. Thanks for your patience in the chat. Anything going on there that we need to highlight there, Karl?
No, chat's been fantastic. I just
Dennis
love
Mooney,
when everyone says hello to each other.
That's a great question. Adam, what happens if we miss out on all the top free agents? What's worst case scenario option, and how would you draft because of it? Oh, this is a good mailbag question. I like that question a lot.
If I could start, I feel like... Go ahead, Adam.
Trying to load up the NFL site, but it's being slow. Sorry, guys. This is what happens when you live stream sometimes. We'll get there.
Well, to address Dennis Moody's comment, I feel like part of the worst case scenario equation does involve paying Tevin Jenkins a lot more money than otherwise you'd want to.
That's definitely not worst case scenario. Tevin Jenkins is still a good scenario.
Well,
worst case scenario is
Sam
you have
Cosmi contract, $18 million a year for Tevin Jenkins instead of just $25 for Trey Smith.
Worst case scenario is Tevin Jenkins signs somewhere else, and Trey Smith signs somewhere else, and Kevin Zeitler signs somewhere else, and Will Fry signs somewhere else, and Will Henderson signs somewhere else, and the Bears miss out because these guys don't want to come to the Bears. Then what? Then you get a situation where you're trading 4th, 5th round picks for Ryan Bates. Then you get situations where we're doing what we've done in the past because players didn't necessarily sign here with us, and that's an important part of this whole new coaching staff. How active and aggressive will they be on day one of, right now they're in there just like the draft. They've got their big board up on the wall. They're analyzing, they're dissecting every one of these free agents. They're going through the all-22 film. They're going through their stats.
They have a board that's similar to a draft board, and Greg Gabriel, we all know who that is. He essentially confirmed this, and that's the only way to approach it, in my opinion. It's the most logical thing.
So they're doing all this work right now. This new coaching staff, this is what we're banking and hedging on when we see this all-star glorious cast in front of us, that these guys are going to bring this talent in. And that's what we've got to have. I mean, there's no guarantee. We do these mock drafts. We do our simulators. I do these, things for you guys to see. And, we want this player, this player, this player, this player. Well, the reality is not all those players are going to want to play for the Bears. Not every one of them. Maybe some of them are little pansy sassies who want to play in an indoor dome, and they don't want to play at Soldier Field. I mean, that's a realistic thing. Some guys won't want to play outdoors. And
some right guards for the Kansas City Chiefs are dating a woman who lives in Chicago. So there's always a little bit of a story as to why free agency players choose to go where.
This is the biggest flack I'm getting right now. This has become the new Civil War. It really has, because if I show you the video I made on Ashton Genty, it's the only one I've got below 90% on likes. Like, they give you a grade on your likes so you can kind of see what people like and don't like. There is a heavy defense that certain people have for Ashton Genty. I think it's funny that they're defending tooth and nail a player that will never be on the Chicago Bears, but maybe they'll switch fan bases like Pittsburgh fans did with Justin Fields too. I don't know. We'll see what happens. See if they go beat Cowboys fans when the Cowboys draft him.
Adam, I'm not sure if you were aware of this or had this on the agenda. I just came across this. Zach Martin has decided to retire.
Yeah, I saw that. Sorry, ice in my mouth.
Oh, it's
Zach
fine. It's
Martin,
fine.
who is arguably the best guard in the game. I mean, if not, he's been for his career one of the best over his career.
He's going to end up being a Hall of Famer, very deservedly so.
He should be for sure. Yeah, he did
Just
retire.
like Richie Incognito, but I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, a whole episode devoted to that, buddy.
And you stopped by. That was swell, by the way.
That's gonna drive up the guard market. When you have someone that's one of the top guards going, you want your top guard. You
lost
gotta
the top option.
So, all right, this loaded. Let's see if we can find it here now. So, hey, who's this guy in the middle here?
That looks like a Hall of Famer.
We'd like to see him as a Chicago Bear, right?
Got to trade up for Mason Graham, man.
All right, it's here somewhere.
Victor Perez has got the FGB vomit flowing. We love to see it. Members, show us those emotes.
There's what you're talking about right there. Cowboys offensive lineman Zach Martin to retire after 11 seasons in the NFL. We're not seeing it here. It's news, though. Come on. We had it ready and then had to reload the screen.
Are you referring to the salary cap numbers?
Yeah, the salary cap. It was right here on
I
the
think
front screen.
I think I could help you out.
I had it loaded up here, and then we had to refresh it because the... All right, where's the salary cap? Where's the search bar? Amateur hour. We're gonna get rid of this one. We're gonna get rid of NFL.com. You got it?
Yeah, Dan Graziano.
There we go. Good job, Karl. On ESPN, Old Faithful, reliable. So the NFL on Wednesday informed its teams that the per-team salary cap for 2025 would be between $277.5 million and $281.5 million, with the final figure to be determined following further negotiation with the NFL Players Association. I had to clear my throat. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of head cold, I think, so I had to mute that for just a half a second. We're good, though. So a lot of people have already asked on some of the other videos, why aren't you making a bigger deal of this? Why is this not something that you're talking about? Well, because, guys, I already had it at 275, so we were $2.5 million off. I already assumed the 275 was going to be right around there. But for you guys today, we are going to go ahead and we're going to bring up the nerdy analytical stuff that you love, and we're going to bring up the entire salary cap for this team, where we stand right now and where it's headed from here. So let's go ahead and pull that sucker up. Present.
So one thing too, we'll get into it. With the salary cap going up, that is not an obvious indicator that you have more room for maneuverability, technically. I think it's just going to equate to players getting paid more. Case in point, Trey Smith.
Both. Now, obviously, we keep resetting market. When you hear that term, resetting the guard market, Lindstrom and Dickerson, these guys got paid $20.5, $21 million. And that's why they say, even though Trey Smith isn't the top guard, we talk about him because he's, probably the most age combined with where he's ranked so far. The top
injury
guard.
History, your best ability is your availability. It's all there.
Well, because Kevin Zeitler technically was the third best guard in the entire NFL last year and the best free agent guard, but he's 35 years old. So you have to weigh those things. This guy's 35 at some point.
And you have to weigh the situation with Zeitler. He's playing in between the second team All-Pro right tackle and the All-Pro center. So
I don't think for Zeitler it's going to be that big of a thing where I don't know if the Lions are going to bring him back. You hear rumors of that, but you hear more buzz about him going other places.
Yeah, there's a player that the Lions have waiting in the wings. I don't know if his name is Mahogany or who it is, but the Lions have a replacement essentially. But that's why I bring up Tevin Jenkins. Imagine you roll the dice on Tevin Jenkins and he stays healthy and he returns to right guard where a lot of people tell you Tevin Jenkins was better. I think he's a slam dunk layup for the Lions.
The Tevster. Let's see here. Is this... Let's make it a little bit bigger, actually. Let's go zoomed in so we get more of just the salary cap. We can always scroll down if we need to. All right, so here's Adam's little Excel spreadsheet.
Freak in the sheets. You love to see it.
The freak in the sheets. So here's where we stand right now. Let's go down here to the bottom. Sorry if it's scrolling too fast. I'll let you guys know what I'm doing. But here's where we stand right now. So with the new calculations in there, it's now 277.5 to 281.5. So I just went right in the middle. And then at the bottom here, I put plus or minus 2 million. Fair? I think it's the fairest way to do it. So 279,500. That's where the anticipated salary cap is. The adjusted salary cap with rollover, the Bears have $5,084,460 that they did not spend from last year. Now, unless they do something with the rest of that money this year, which is not likely, that'll roll into next year. So this is what the salary cap looks like for the Bears. If you don't spend your cap, it rolls to the next year. That's a good thing for the Bears. So they have $284,584,460. Done. The dead cap, which is very minimal. I mean, this is usually just players that you gave some guarantees to come in for camp, that you had rookies that you had to cut. These are just small guarantees that pile up to be $2.385 million. This is extremely low. So good job, Ryan Poles. I approve. Now, one nice thing on Spotrac is they just updated. They do this every year. I was given my estimate before between $13 and $14 million for the rookie cap for the Bears, what the salary cap will be for those 8 draft picks we have. Let's go here and we can actually, let's remove this and let's go. Let's bring in Spotrac. We can actually show you on here now. If you guys go to Spotrac, I like Spotrac. I'm a big fan of it this time of year. A lot of times it's inaccurate. And right now they'll tell you the cap is something other than what it is because they include, let's see here. Sorry, I'm scrolling fast. I know this is dizzy for your eyes if you're looking, but we'll get there. They're going to say the salary cap for 2025 is 63 million. We'll get to why there's a difference. They've got 216. I've got 200. I'm allocating for the rookies. They're not. We'll give you the difference of what's going on there and understand what's happening. But let me go to another screen here. Let's go to the overview. Here's the Bears cap. This is the players. And this is what I'm talking about. So 53 players will be on your salary cap. Okay. 51 count during this time of year until roster cut downs to 53 so that you can have flexibility to bring guys in. Now you get 90 guys heading into spring camp or summer camp or whatever you want to call the time of year where we actually get going. Is this showing? Yeah, it is. Okay. I had to make sure that everything was clear on here. So these are your players, but realistically, if you roll down here, there's going to be some players that probably aren't going to make
Hyundai Santa Fe versus Subaru Outback.
You're going to have some players on here that are not going to make the roster. This is where we're talking about here. Samari Tare, Chris Glazer, Maurice Alexander. Maybe they will. Who knows? But I'm not going to count these guys right now like Spotrac is because are they really going to make the roster? I don't know. Yeah, Ian Wheeler, Jordan McFadden, Alex Cook, Swayze Bozeman, Jamari Coma, Joel Wilson, Jordan Murray. So you got 49 guys on the roster, and we have to get to 90. Okay, so we're gonna sign 41 more guys. The big name signings is all we really care about, and then we're gonna fill in the roster with some guys basically trying to make it. So here's your dead money. This is what I'm talking about. We're basically down to bare bones here. Nate Davis is the biggest part of that from cutting him last year. Then Velus Jones, Tyree Carter, Jamari Chroma. And these are all rookie right here. Rookie amounts that were promised to them. This is minimal. We're so minimal with our dead cap. It's beautiful. And then they have included here our draft pool now. So here's the 2025 draft pool and what each player will be paid at each position. Obviously, round one, number 1 overall is going to be way more expensive. They're going to make about $10 million. That's why Caleb's contract was so expensive. We had the number 1 overall pick. You get down to 10, it's already down to 4.2, 39, 1.8. 41, 1.7, on and on and on until you're down here at league minimum contract.
Do you know off the top of your head, where's that cutoff? Is it literally the first round, picks 32 and 33?
For what?
There's a big drop off to go from the 10th overall pick having a $4.2 million cap hit to go to 39 and be all the way down to 1.8.
Yeah, you get down
to
there'd
be a huge drop off after the first round or something like that.
No, you get down to around 15, 20, 25. And it's the first 5, 10 picks are paid the most. Those guys are paid and then there's a huge decline.
That's why when we talk about top 5, top 10 picks, it's not just because of a pretty number. These GMs are having this conversation because of that cap hit.
Yeah. Yep. So this gives you an idea of where we stand now. And this accounts to what I put on that other page. Let's get rid of this. Hopefully you guys like some of this nerdy stuff. We love you. We love you.
I agree with Tammy Eben in the chat. Chicago should be an attractive location. I'd have to totally agree, man.
Yeah, Chicago should be an attractive location for free agents. We have plenty of money. Can't imagine us not signing 2 big free agents on the line. And a huge part of that is what we've done, going out and assembling this monster of a head coach and coaching staff that should be attractive to these guys. So
Absolutely.
should make it lucrative for us to be able to sign some of these guys. But okay, so here's my difference with them: 12.570, 761. Then you have to account for your practice squad guys too. So there's 4 million there. So when all that's said and done, right now we got 35 players that I'm accounting for the 53-man roster. Okay. Add to that the 8 for this right here, and you've got 43. So we need 10 more players with $65 million. That's a really good place for the Bears to be in, because some of those players, like your long snapper, that's going to be a $1.03 million contract of Scott Daly. Let's just say we re-sign Scott Daly. That's a league minimum contract right there. So that's good. It's going to make the average come up for the rest of them. Then you come up here and you got, let's say we re-sign Jack Sanborn. Let's say somebody offer, because he's a restricted free agent. I got to clarify every time. Remember that not everybody knows what I'm referring to. So Jack Sanborn's a restricted free agent. Let's say that someone offers him a 3-year, $15 million contract, which is probably realistically right where it's going to be at. And we say, okay, we'll match that. He's worth it. So we're going to pay him $5 million. That's still below your 6.5 average for those last 10 players. Helps have more spendable money in other places too. And I did add Swayze Bozeman in. I really liked. I think they're using him as Amen Ogbongbemiga replacement, in my opinion. That's just my personal opinion. But
Swayze is the guy we just got from the Chiefs, right?
yeah, who played a huge role on special teams. I mean, he really, really played a big role on special teams. I did small 22 on that on one of the videos. So
I just couldn't get over Amen Ogbog getting just toasted in that first Hall of Fame game against the Texans. I have been completely off that train. Yeah.
There should be 2 more here. I'll explain in a second. There should be 2 more there. We're talking about like Jalen Jones. Let's say we match Jalen Jones and Josh Blackwell. Those 2 we're going to have 2 more here. I just didn't have the spaces there that I put in.
God willing, in regards to Josh Blackwell.
Let's say we match both those guys and they make, let's say, $2 million and $2.5 million. That helps to sign the last remaining spots. So there is a lot of flexibility. It's not like we can't go out and get Trey Smith. It's just, can we lock some of these lower ones down to make it worth it? This one, easy. That's going to be easy. Are we going to keep Josh Blackwell and Jalen Jones? I mean, there could be other corners we go after. There could be other nickels that we go after. Those who don't know, Josh Blackwell is our backup nickel, the best backup nickel in the league.
Fact.
Jalen Jones is a solid rotational cornerback who stepped in when needed to.
He has filled in for Jalen Johnson and has not resulted in absolute travesty. So, again, another capable player. Since like late 21, early 2022, I've been touting Josh Blackwell and Jalen Jones as just being worth their weight in gold. They're not iconic Hall of Fame starters, but they're very valuable pieces.
And then we have other big things coming up, like every one of these 4 right there, who is our safety core. That's our core of safeties. Every one of them's contract is done right here this year. That's it. So what do you do?
That might end up being a good thing, depending on how Dennis Allen wants to build things out. But
kind of like what you're referring to is like the offensive line this year. It's a blank canvas. They can come in and they can shape it however they want. Is that what you're referring to? That next year they basically can.
And there's nothing to say that if Kevin Byard and Jonathan Brisker, Jaquan Brisker, if they, in the case of Brisker, stay healthy, if Byard proves to be worthy, you can extend these guys. I'm pretty sure. Offer extensions midseason, I think.
Yeah, I think this one right here is kind of the foregone conclusion that he'll get an extension at some point this year.
Yeah, he's definitely the guy. He's the most likely to get, because it feels like the Bears and specifically Ryan Poles always want to have a contract come out before the season starts, right?
Yeah.
Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, Kyler Gordon's right there.
Johnson.
Yes, Kyler Gordon's right here, man.
Yeah, and especially when Ben Johnson comes out and flat out says Kyler Gordon is someone that he's excited about. I mean, that it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Spider-Man's going to be
you mean part. Dennis Allen?
Dennis Allen, sorry. We talked about him.
No, definitely. He's the queen on the chessboard, man. Like, we're going to see some big things. I'm very excited about it.
So that'll be exciting. But then, so over here on the side is my ticker of counting up the ones that are under contract for us that will probably be a part of the 53 man. And this is my speculation. So you might not agree with all this. You might say, well, Karl Jones Jr. is going to make the roster. I don't agree with you, Adam. So what this color means here is it's not included in my accounting. You can see I only have those 5 included as the salary cap. So I'm not counting like Spotrac is all these contracts because at the end of the day, they don't count towards the 51. And I know this is how the Bears are doing it internally too, as well. We're not worried about this little contract here because it's not going to count at the end of the day. We're more worried about all of these contracts and how they build together at the end of the day.
I heard someone make a comment in the past, not directly related to Adam, but they said that Excel is where the money is made, and I can start to see now why. Very good practice here with Adam. This is the content that you guys show up for, and I just wanted to single out Chicago Sports Podcast. Hope you're doing, buddy. Thanks for that super chat.
Sorry,
definitely.
I'm looking at my spreadsheet. I'm not even looking, so let me get back there and highlight it. Sorry about that.
And I don't mean to derail you, slow you down. I just want to
No. I'm glad
show
you
the
said
appreciation.
something. I am glad you said something. Thank you. Let me get to it. Where are we at? Right there. Sorry about that. All right, Chicago Sports Podcast. Great job, Adam and Karl. Way to crunch these numbers. Bear down. I do appreciate that. I'm sorry. I'm over on the so when you're on StreamYard, when I'm over on a shared screen, I'm not seeing the chat, and I'm kind of relying on Karl there. So I appreciate that, Karl. Thanks for bringing that up.
And I appreciate the donation, Mr. CSP. So hope you're doing well, buddy.
Okay, so let's roll through this. I'm going to try to keep this to an hour tonight because Karl does have his own show tonight over at BCP. Those who didn't see in the description of the video, there is a link for Karl at Thy and Smi for his own channel, and there's a link for Bears Country Podcast because it is very generous of Karl to come over and do this limited series, 11-part before the draft. And we've already talked on base level terms, very generically that like last year we'll, hop back and forth between each other's channels during the draft. We're all each going to be live. It's going to be fun. So go check out Karl. He talked about how his subscription's gone up to 400. Let's get him to 1,000. I mean, even if you're not, familiar with Karl's channel yet, go check it out. Hit that subscribe button. Then you'll get notified of one of his videos. Check out his videos. You'll like it. If you don't like Karl, at the end of the day, unsubscribe. But give him a shot. Let him see what happens.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Even if you go to the channel and say something negative to me, it's I'll take it as feedback nonetheless. So again, much appreciated. And Adam, thank you very much for that.
Okay, so we're going to roll through this quick because we got a lot to cover here, guys. But here's the roster cap figures. Caleb, like we talked about, $8.9 million next year escalates. Each rookie contract does escalate to the end of their rookie contract. This isn't the end. I just don't want to take too much space here. He has the 5th-year option that would be 2028, but that's not on here. And some of these contracts go past 2027. I'm just throwing the next 3 years because that's kind of what I focus on when I'm roster building and I'm playing GM. So these, as you see here, the yellow color, they don't count towards the 51 or 53. So we're not going to count those. So over here, 1, 2 is my count there. Running backs, I do think Ian Wheeler will be on this roster at the end of the day, unless we pick someone up in free agency and then draft someone. He's probably the one that gets the bump down to the practice squad. We'll see what happens because nobody knows what's going to happen until 2 weeks from now, 2.5 weeks from now. We'll see what happens. But here's where I've got them. DeAndre Swift is 3, Roshan Johnson, Ian Wheeler. I see them on the roster. So there's a need here. That's what green means. Green means we need.
We're talking about these contracts being handed to rookies based on when they're drafted. Just look at that with Ian Wheeler and Rojo.
Well, he's an undrafted free agent. You know that, right?
Yeah, and Roshan Johnson was a fourth round draft pick.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a difference of only $300,000.
Well, once you're in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, it's $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 difference. Your big difference is that first round. The first round.
And I don't want to come off like some sort of bigwig, like that's serious money for me. But I mean, for an NFL football player, that's the difference between being good enough to get drafted and not.
So
I don't know about that.
If you're drafted in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th undrafted free agent, what you're playing for is right here. You're playing for a second contract. You're fighting your way into the league. You're proving your worth, and you're fighting for that contract right here. Or, DeAndre Swift, fight for that contract.
Yeah, let's have Khalil Herbert on the show and ask him about his thoughts on that, man. That's why he probably was very much okay with getting traded to not have to just play special teams. But then you start thinking with a Roshan Johnson, like I'm talking about converting Roshan Johnson to a fullback, and he's making UDFA money. He might want to leave. I mean, that's nuts.
We already got our fullback. You know that, right?
Who's that?
I got to show you now.
If you show me a picture of Doug Kramer, I'm going to leave the stream.
It's very similar. Right there at the bottom. I don't have a pointer for you guys, but Jordan McFadden from the Chargers. I don't know if you saw that. If you haven't, go look. I made a video on him. If you just go look at my video of him, I did put some video clip in there from camp. He was lined up, and they were doing tons of reps with him taking hands off like Doug Kramer, and he was taking those handoffs. Jordan McFadden.
Let me tell you. I've seen. I need to know this as a Michigan fan. Pretty sure Khalil Mullings, converted linebacker. Like, Jim Harbaugh is all for that type of stuff, man.
Yeah, Harbaugh has
so
fun.
To have McFadden do that, I'm not surprised in the slightest. But
so we'll see if we use him the same way. All right, we're going to keep rolling through here. Then you get into your wide receivers, and we got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Tyler Scott. See, Rome Odunze was picked at number 9 overall.
9.
So right there in the same range. Tyler Scott, 4th rounder. And then I'm not counting these guys. I think we need 2 new wide receivers, in my opinion. Maybe the Bears say Samori Torrey is good enough or John Jackson's good enough. We'll see.
John Jackson's going to be on that Chicago Bear payroll for as long as Caleb Williams is, man. He won't be a starter, but yeah, for sure.
Excuse me. I am fighting a little tickle. Apologize, guys. All right. Then you got Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, and blank. Mercedes Lewis is gone. Jordan Murray and Joel Wilson. I actually like Joel Wilson. I want to see what happens with him in camp. I like the prospect of him. But arguably, we'll go over some of these. Could be cut, save $5.5 million towards somewhere else. We can make this cap go up a little bit.
I want you to get through your spiel, and then I want to present an argument to you.
Perfect.
But just looking at Cole Kmet's salary there, it's perfect. It's symmetrical. It's identical. That's where we're going to get into the weeds a little bit. But please continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it can be manipulated, as you said. Right. Here's the big thing to notice for this year. This offensive line, this is what we talk about with the blank canvas. It's not just needing a center, guard, and guard. We got our left tackle and right tackle for this year, arguably. Maybe some people don't feel Braxton Jones is, but there's bigger needs. And especially if you want to take some specialty players like a running back or another wide receiver or a tight end, you've got to consider in there that this might not be the biggest need this year, especially when next year's left tackle class is much stronger with tackles that actually have 36-inch arms and strong bases. But
now, Braxton Jones, 5th round pick, making less money than Roschon Johnson. Is that based on the position?
No, whenever you're a third-year player going into your final year of your contract, there's something called an escalator. Did I put it here? Yep. Here's the ones that acquired an escalator this year. If they played enough reps, the league requires an escalator to be done. This is what Braxton Jones would have normally made. This is the bump he got this year because he qualified by having enough snaps.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's the non-scandalous thing that the NFL has done. So bravo to them.
So part of the collective bargaining agreement,
we're
getting into a lot of nerdy, background stuff, but the collective bargaining agreement, if these players over the first 3 years in that rookie contract have played enough, they are required by the league to get an escalator. The percentage of that is determined on, how much they play, how well they play. Jaquan Brisker, obviously, he played very well before this year. You can see his bump because he played less snaps this year isn't quite as big as Braxton Jones' bump or Kyler Gordon's bump. So their bump was bigger because Jaquan Brisker missed a significant time this year. You could argue that the Bears did that on purpose with Jaquan Brisker. I don't know. We'll find out.
Matt Eberflus would tell you it was on purpose, but we're really getting into the weeds.
So when you look at that 5th round, it's not just he would have made normally 3.3. It's normally would have been 1.174. That's
almost identical to Roschon Johnson, who is drafted only 1 round ahead of him. So again, makes perfect sense. We're batting 1,000 right now.
So, but this is what we're talking about by a blank canvas for this offensive line. You need a center and you need a backup center. You need a guard and a backup guard and another guard. And you can say Ryan Bates could be cut too because all $4 million of this is expendable. We can cut that, save every penny and dime of it. I think it's going to come down to his injury history. If he's over his concussion, for those who aren't familiar, I'll remind everyone, he had a shoulder injury that could have medically retired him. He went and got some injections done and went and got a scope done on it, and they said they fixed it. Well, we got into the season with us, and they didn't fix it. So went back on the IR. We came back, I don't know exactly what week it was, 12, 13, somewhere around mid-season, 12, 13-ish. And then he got a concussion, and then he was out for the season with his concussion, just like Jaquan Brisker was out for the season with his concussion. So same thing. Availability. Is he going to be available this year? We know Ryan Poles liked the prospect of Ryan Bates, and he traded a draft pick for him. $4 million isn't a lot for a guard if that guard is playing and lives up to his potential. I don't think anybody wants to bank on him as a starting guard, though, for us, though. So at best, he could be the backup guard if he's healthy and ready to go. If not, we can cut him, save $4 million.
So if I find myself in the Las Vegas Strip, instead of putting it all on red, I should put it all on Ryan Bates being the starter. And if it hits, I'm rich.
Do it.
I'm all in.
But this is what we need. We need 6 players at least on the offensive line. So it's not just going out and signing 1, signing 2, signing 3. It's 6 players, and maybe even Ryan Bates. So maybe even 7 players. That's a lot. That's an overhaul. But at the same time, like we talked about, blank canvas. It could be this coaching staff might be very excited to have this blank canvas to build the offensive line they want to build. All right.
Hopefully Dan Ruchar has something to say about that, man. Like I said, track record. They're big. The scheme, I don't know about the scheme. Ben Johnson, Dan Ruchar. Track record of them having a very good, highly invested into center. So I'd be looking out for that.
Perfect. All right, we're going to roll through the rest of this. All right, we got Montez Sweat, who's probably the only starter that's guaranteed to be a starter on the defensive line, except Gervon Dexter. Why do I have him all the way down here? Let's cut him. Bring him up here. You be up here, Gervon. Insert cut stills. Boom. Done. All right. So Gervon Dexter should be up there. Boom. All right. So we need another defensive tackle and then another backup defensive tackle, unless we're going to keep Zach Pickens or Andrew Billings should be up here as a backup. Anyways, these aren't in order perfectly, guys, but we do need 3 more defensive linemen. Argue about whether Andrew Billings should be a starter or not. That's up to you guys. 52nd ranked defensive tackle when he did play, 150th ranked against the run. That does not scream starter to me. I'm done with mediocre, but I do think he's a very good rotational defensive tackle who gets a lot of pressure. So that's a good thing. Not cutting him, not saving that $3.32 million, which is all savable.
Yeah. If you want to get into the weeds on a guy like DeMarcus Walker, that's a bigger cap hit. We could save some money, yada, yada, yada. We just watched the Philadelphia Eagles destroy the Chiefs, who had a really solid interior offensive line. Now I'm seeing the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl performance being compared to the 85 Bears. I think it was CBS said that the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles were the best Super Bowl team in the last 20 years. Ooh, that's because of how deep of a defensive line they have. So while you might save money with DeMarcus Walker, what are you replacing him with that money? If that $6 million is the difference between getting Trey Smith and having to settle for paying Tevin Jenkins, maybe you think about it. I don't think that ever's going to come up with this cap situation, though.
Yeah, I agree, especially when you see out there what they say. Khalil Mack is now expected to make over $20 million this year.
Let him go play for the Raiders in your backyard, man, not for that money.
My goodness, I was thinking if we got him for $12 million, I'd be like, yeah, he's on the age decline. Let's snag him for $12 million. I'm good with that.
And this is this is justification for my comments. Like, this cap is expanding, and what's in the woodworks is that Netflix wants to acquire the Sunday afternoon package from either Fox or CBS. So now you're injecting Netflix money into here. This cap situation, these players are going to want to get more money, and they're not stupid.
Yeah, I agree with you. So we're not going to go into the semantics of each one of these players today. We're going to show the ones who could be cut because we are getting shorter on time. We're going to get to that in a second. Man, there's so much we want to go over. It's a good thing we have 11 weeks, Karl. I'm glad you're here for 11 weeks. It's going to be well worth the time.
The fun thing about this is that it's continuously evolving, right? As things come out. Like maybe when we started this series 3 weeks ago, we didn't know that Zach Martin would be retiring. So that's what makes it fun. And it's live.
Yeah. So DeMarcus Walker, great against the run. Probably our only good defender against the run last year. Montez Sweat's decent, but without somebody next to him to help stop that, it's a train wreck. So we got to fix this defensive line too. Then we get down here. We got a linebacker need, maybe 2 linebacker needs, but Jack Sanborn could fill that role. We'll see if he gets re-signed. Then you get down here into the secondary, and you just got a couple spots here. This should be, another safety / cornerback in Jalen Jones and another nickelback, which is really what Kyler Gordon is, nickelback. And your backup nickelback should be someone who can play both nickel and corner, and that's exactly what Josh Blackwell is. So I think those two fit it perfectly if we hit there. And then you need a long snapper. That's it. So anybody, you got any questions on this, Karl, before we leave away from this? We got about 65 million. That's the long and short of it. About 65
Do I
million.
have a question? No. But if you could scroll up to the top there with Cole Kmet's value, just to kind of finish off that thought, right? So, I don't know if this is the exact numbers that you've retrieved from somewhere, or if you've quite simply taken the contract that he's gotten and this is boiling down to the AAV.
These are the exact numbers. In fact, let's stop sharing this one. Let's go over to Spotrac, and it'll show you the breakdown of the entire contract.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm not saying I don't believe you, but when I say that the salary cap is a myth, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I know that the NFL is the best sport in the world because of the way the salary cap doesn't allow you to masquerade like the Los Angeles Dodgers and buy every top-tier Japanese talent that the world has ever seen, all at the same time, right? You have to play within the confines of the rules. But when I see that in 2029, Jalen Hurts' cap hit is $99 million, that's why I say the salary cap is a myth. It's your creativity. And you're going to pay for it. Look at the New Orleans Saints, who are negative $80 million plus in the cap right now. So the way that you can structure things, I think right now we have to think of it as the opposite effect. We're not paying our quarterback $60 million. By the time it's ready to pay Caleb Williams, hopefully we have to pay him $80 million because he's that good, and that's just what the cap has risen to at that time. But we're not in that situation. So when we're talking about paying a lot of money for Trey Smith, why the hell not?
Well, you're just trying to get right into the nuts and bolts of everything. We're not ready for that yet.
Okay.
We'll get to there in a second. But what you're alluding to, Karl, I'm just going to give a brief breakdown of the salary cap. So you see in 2023, at the end of the season, before the 24 season, Cole Kmet signed a 4-year, $50 million contract, average of 12.5. Well, why is he only getting 11.6 million per year then? Well, because the Bears went ahead and added a signing proration to 2023 as part of that bonus for him. So this is what he was making before. They said, hey, we're going to give you a bonus for giving us a signing bonus or for extending with us. So they put some of that there. You can do the same thing now with some of this base salary on his contract here. You can reallocate a bunch of that money to signing bonuses. It just has to be accounted for somewhere. So maybe we want to save money for the future because we've got 65 million this year, and we get a couple of free agents we wanted, but we have some extra space. Well, Cole Kmet, we're going to give you some extra money here. We want to give you an extra $10 million. We're going to take $2.5 million off of each of these next 3 years and put it over here and give you 7.5 million or 10 million this year. We're going to do that for you because we love you. We know you're going to stay here, and it's a big bonus to help us with future salary cap. Or conversely, we can take some of this from this year and say, well, this 9.9 million, we need some of this to sign Trey Smith. We're going to take that and we're going to allocate 2.5 million each of the next 3 years and put it here. So now he's going to make on paper 14.1 million each of the next 3 years after this year. And this year he's only going to make $2.2 million because we prorated that later in signing bonuses and roster bonuses or however bonus we want to put. It's just got to be allocated somewhere within that framework to be able to make that work. So it is clay. It's moldable. You can change this thing around.
Fact.
There's only certain contracts you can do that with, and I'm glad you pointed out Cole Kmet's because his is one of the most moldable. I mean, you could do anything. You could allocate it forward, backwards. You can do anything you want, and he's a player that we're not going to cut. It's much weird. I mean, we get into Bears Twitter, and there's weird stuff. We're going to cut.
Well, Adam, he's not exactly like the tight end from Detroit. He could be a tiny bit better.
Cole Kmet's here to stay, and he's going to – if you're Ben Johnson and you're coming in here and you're looking at Cole Kmet, same thing with Gerald Everett, guys. It's not foregone. I saw people on Twitter that Ben Devine went back and forth with me and said, we're cutting Gerald Everett. And I said, how do you know? It's a foregone conclusion. I defined to him what a foregone conclusion is. It is not a foregone conclusion. In fact, I'm going to bring it up for you guys so you can see. This is the stuff we want to show here.
You better not bring up that Ben Devine conversation because I capped that off terribly.
I'm not. I was proud of it, though. I did see you on there, though. That was funny.
I was proud of it.
I did see you on there, though. That was funny.
I was proud of it.
All right, so let's go back to this.
I was proud of it.
All right, so I'm going to bring this up just for the sake of like, this is what the Bears are doing. They're sitting there with their big board. Let's pretend Karl and I are, Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson, and we're sitting in here discussing these things. And we get to this point, and we're talking about, not this one. Come on, Adam. Get on your A game, buddy.
Boo.
Boo. Right here, Gerald Everett. So here's Gerald Everett. We're looking at him, and they've got more advanced stats. They're not looking at PFF. This is for the layman's. This is for us little weaklings who have to pay for a subscription and have to look at and we don't have all the Bears stuff and all their advanced metrics. Anyways, they're looking in here, and they're saying, okay, here's Gerald Everett. This is our guy. This is blocking. Let's go to his receiving. How is he? We want kind of a Brock Bowers. We want kind of a Sam Laporta. We want, that guy. You got Cole Kmet, and we got Gerald Everett. Is Gerald Everett useful for us? Well, you look at his pass blocking grades. Well, he's a really good pass blocker. He's done a really good job pass blocking. Well, man, these fell off a cliff. What's the reasoning behind this? Well, 12 targets compared to prior years, 70, 82, 59, 59, 70% reception, 80% reception. Well, let's look at some advanced metrics on him. Sorry if it's small on your screen. I'm trying to point out the things that I'm seeing. Well, before this year, 3.8% drop, 7.9, 5.9. Those are good. Contested catches have always been decent. NFL passer rating with target has always been decent. Anywhere around 100 is good for wide receivers. You can accept a little less than that for tight ends. Man, this last year's an anomaly. Is this really his fault? Is it his fault he had 12 targets and 8 receptions for 36 yards? Is this a system thing? If you're looking at that and you're Ben Johnson, what are you thinking, Karl?
What's the sample size on those pass blocks? Because apparently his pass block, you said, is going up, but I would beg to differ.
What do you mean the sample size? I don't know what you mean by that. This is over the season.
Yeah, so like, I was watching one of your videos where I thought PFF showed you how many like attempts you had at pass blocking, because he hasn't been on the field much.
Here's his blocking. Here's his pass blocking opportunities, 16 of them.
As opposed to like the other ones where it was either better or worse.
Season? Let's look at his 2023 season.
Oh, you really got to go into the weeds.
27 opportunities. Yeah, we are going into the weeds. 2022, 35 opportunities. I mean, your tight ends aren't going to have as many opportunities as your, tackles, obviously, but they're going to have some.
And let's just be blunt. We don't want Gerald Everett pass blocking. That's not his strength. So can he do it? Sure, I know what you're saying, but at the end of the day, you want to maximize the value on the player for what you signed him for. He's a pass-catching tight end, and I don't think he did a good job. And if the opportunity cost is to take away from Cole Kmet, take away from Roma Dunze, I don't think you need to pay that much money for this. And I've been told this tight end draft class for tight ends in this draft class is deep.
But we already need one. We already need one. We lost Mercedes Lewis, so do we need to draft
let's bring in some sort of veteran presence to be tight end 3, elevate the basement of the roster, and draft a tight end in I don't know what rounds to have that ability.
Well, what's Gerald Everett then?
Gerald Everett's a guy, in my opinion, who I think is making too much money for what his position is.
Yeah, but what you just said, he's a veteran presence, right?
Well, I'm sure we could get some sort of tight end in here for $1 million, $2 million. So, literally a third as expensive as him. And I think you could have a better role for the player.
$1 million for a tight end?
I don't know. How much did Mercedes Lewis make last year?
Yeah, he's 40 years old. That's why he got paid $1.5 million. That's the only reason.
I understand. Well, that's why they are the professionals and we are not. I'm just spitballing. I would love to have that money allocated elsewhere as opposed to just having it be your backup tight end, who you're saying it's not a liability. I almost want to beg to differ. I know the one rep that I remember seeing in my head, it was a combo on the left side that involved Mercedes Lewis. The blocking excellence of Mercedes Lewis totally let us down. But I can't think of a opportunity that Gerald Everett had or did not capitalize on regarding pass blocking, so I'll give that one to you.
Well, clearly there was one bad game here against Indianapolis, and I'm sure we saw that play. I'd have to go back and look at the All-22 to see what play that was, or 2 plays, but it looked like he had a bad pass blocking rep there, obviously, or that grade wouldn't be so low. Cole Kmet had the same thing, though. Are we going to criticize and hammer on a player for one play? Or, I mean, the reality is you're not going to get a quality tight end for $5.5 million. It's going to cost more than that. So
How hard would it be for you to find our options if you don't already have that? I mean, I can do some triangulation here as well.
I do it I had it here before. Let's see. Free agent rankings. Let's go. I got to share the screen. Sorry. Let me get rid of this screen here. I did bring up on several of my mock drafts because of this same scenario you're talking about. I brought up the Jaguars backup kid. He's a good pass blocker, but he's crap for route running. He can't separate worth any. If you watch, so I watched his all 22, and he just looks like he's terrible. Like he's not gonna catch you anything. He's got a lot of development to do. So we'll look here. We'll go tight ends. So here's your tight end options at free agency according to PFF.
I only saw 4 names from PFF.
So Juwan Johnson, they're going to say he's going to be about $10 million a year. Mike Gesicki about $6 million a year. Tyler Conklin.
Those two are essentially elite pass catching options when it pertains to free agency. So they're completely out of the realm of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I don't think either of them wants to come to a team and be tight end 2 behind Cole Kmet. That's not the role they're going to be looking for.
That's correct.
Same with Tyler Conklin, 3 years, $9 million average.
Hey, Mike Gesicki is one of the names that were lumped into Joe Burrow's Christmas wish list, including T. Higgins and everyone else. Gesicki. Joe Burrow wants Gesicki back. So I don't know if he'll leave or not, but conversely, you finish off these names here with Tyler Conklin.
Well, if you're looking at the aged ones, maybe we could get Zach Ertz for $34.2 million, or for at 34 years old for $3.5 million. That's a little savings. I'd be okay with that. Zach Ertz.
If Zach Ertz doesn't want to finish the job with the Redskins, I think that he's going to find his way back home to Philadelphia. So I don't think there's any stock worth putting into that as far as it pertains to the Bears. But now there's going to be a wave of free agents and essentially players that we'd think there's no way they're going to get cut. There's no way the Bills get rid of Mitch Morse.
You're going to start seeing the cuts. It's going to start happening this next week, right before for the next week and a half. You'll start seeing some of those cuts occurring.
Right, exactly like if we were to cut Gerald Everett, there's going to be a team that has a Gerald Everett that's going to cut him, and maybe they're going to make a little bit less money if that becomes saturated. Again, on top of the fact that we're talking about a deep tight end class, same with the running backs, right? I made the half-joking suggestion that Najee Harris could sign for less than $1 million. There's less than any chance of that happening, but my point to that is just that you're going to get some bargain shopping at some point, and I think that you can find a guy to replace Gerald Everett for cheaper that could play his role better.
Now, here's the thing, in my opinion, this is why we talked through this, Karl. You guys in the chat, thank you. Sorry we're not looking at you as much as we should. You guys are awesome. What if the Bears go higher than people expect with tight end in the draft? Then you don't even need a high-level tight end 3. You just need someone that services the role and fills in special teams. You could have a Joel Wilson or a Steven Carlson. We could bring Steven Carlson back, who has been a vet on this team and has played very well in special teams. You can cut Gerald Everett for $5.5 million and say we take Colston Loveland that falls to us at 39. If he somehow falls to 39, how do you not?
Buddy, I thought you were laying me up for the idea of 3 Michigan Wolverines being drafted in the top 10.
Colston Loveland should go in the first round. I'm just saying, if you're truly doing your job as GM of the Bears, you're going to accept best player available when it comes along. And let's say that this is it's not elite. A lot of people are making it sound like it's the best tight end class that's ever happened. It's a good tight end class.
Yeah, it's a good class with deep availability. I wouldn't say there's a Hall of Famer sitting here, and that's, again, Michigan fan talking about Colston Loveland. I don't think it's tippy top. The kid from Penn State is the one who's interesting, right? Because he's so much more than just a tight end. Yeah.
Tyler Warren is I've got him there. I've got him in my top 10. I'm just straight up. I've got him in my top 10.
He's probably deserving of that. But again, we're talking about positional value. Hopefully, like what you said, the GM is assessing best player available because that's what it boils down to. He's deserving.
Trapper Keeper, this is the guy I like a lot. And I liked him before the Senior Bowl, and then those highlights of the Senior Bowl came out. Arroyo from Miami, he is a well-rounded tight end. I do my daily highlight videos highlighting a player in the draft the Bears should go after. He's coming up very soon, and he's one of my favorites. I love his route running. I love how crisp he is. He's big. He can block. He's a bruiser. I feel like he's turning into my what's the Ohio State kid last year? Cade Stover. He's turning into my Cade Stover this year. Like, I fell in love with Cade Stover, and I'm doing the same thing again.
Where'd Cade Stover end up? Is he on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
No, he went to Houston.
Oh, okay.
And he had a decent first season.
Otten.
Tight ends take time to develop, but he had a good
That's
first
correct.
season for them, but limited role. But,
yeah, I mean, again, from a very far point of view, I don't think much of Cam Ward. And Miami, the Hurricanes, had a very potent offense. So if we're talking about a Damian Martinez, the running back, or an Arroyo, the tight end, I even like the slot receiver or projected slot receiver. I can't think of his name right now either, but they're good players, man. So I wouldn't want the Bears to overdraft a tight end. That break my heart. But if a player that good falls into their lap in the appropriate spot, why not?
Yeah. So here's kind of my thought of where I'm heading with free agency.
Thank
what
you,
I
Trevor
want to see.
Keepa.
I don't want to see Trey Smith. I don't think anybody should be paid 20, 21, 22, 23 million dollars when you're in a rebuild. When you have this much depth work to do. Sorry guys, I'm scrolling through all that. When you've got this many spots to fill, I am all in. If you didn't see me on Twitter, like signing Zeitler for $10 million, re-signing Tevin Jenkins for $10 million. I'm even good going after Dahlman, Drew Dahlman. What's his first name? I'm spacing.
It is Drew Dahlman. Good
Drew
sir.
Dahlman. I'm fine going after him if this coaching staff is sitting in their room right now. So I've done in-depth breakdown on Drew Dahlman. He is probably the most muscular ability and ability to get out to the second level that I've seen in a center, even more than Connor Williams last year. Like, I fell in love with Connor Williams. You guys know I did the whole obsessive Connor Williams watch. Dahlman, I'm not in on, because those who don't know by now, a lot of people have joined the channel since I've shared this. I wasn't a big-time athlete, but I played defensive end, and then I was the long snapper who played center when needed, but I was a very light center, so I was a backup center. But when you watch on tape, I can see those things on the defensive and offensive line. I watch them probably better than I know other positions. But for Drew Dahlman, he bends at his hips funny. He doesn't have his base down. He doesn't get down in his stance and properly block. So his pass pro continuously comes up short and weak. So let me stop this screen, and I'll actually back it up with the stats. I can't show the film on here, but we can do film later and show film on Dahlman. We can try to do that another time. Oh, we don't want Spotrack. What am I doing here? Amateur hour again. Stop sharing. All right, present, share screen. Gerald Everett. We'll go here to Drew Dahlman. Because you're not going to pay your centers as much, I'm actually good paying him the $10 million a year if this coaching staff gets in there. See his pass blocking grades this last year was better, but he's been poor every year. You should go back and look at tape. He does not get down properly, and he hunches over. So guys get into him and blow him back. You thought Coleman Shelton was bad at getting blown back. He gets blown back. Now, he only played half a season last year, allowed 2 sacks in that, 10 pressures. So it's not terrible. So he manages it well, and he does have a good offensive line around him. But if they can look at his tape and they can say, well, we love his hustle, we love how he can get out to the second level, and he's one of the best run blocking centers in the league, and we feel like we can fix his pass pro, we feel like we can get it's a small fine tune. This is not an overhaul. We can take this kid, we can bring him in. He's only 26 years old. He's been in the league for 4 years on his rookie contract. We can take him. We can take his experience, and we can, Rocher, or how do you say it? Rocher? Dan Rocher can fix this with him. I am not in on Will Fries at all for $14 million. In fact, I had this long conversation with my buddy who's a Colts fan today. Even the Colts fans are saying we're not going to re-sign him for $14 million. 3 developing seasons and then 4 good games before a major injury, and then you want to bring him for $14 million. I'd sign him to a 3-year, $8 million contract.
Sounds like you just described James Daniels, buddy. But all I'll say is that your numbers, why they may be accurate to what things are now, I think that the salary cap situation is a little bit more than leads to, you're letting on to. I think that we're going to see Trey Smith reset the guard market, and we're going to see Drew Dahlman, who's probably the gem at the center position. He's going to get paid a lot. I could see him getting $15 million. Maybe that's too rich. I don't know. But I think that there's going to be some money flying around, and especially after this Super Bowl, where you saw the trenches essentially be the main focus, you're going to want to have a strong interior offensive line.
Oh,
so
I
it
agree.
kind of sucks that the Bears need to load up on all starting and reserve positions because
Well,
you're going to have to pay.
This is ideal to me, Karl. This is where I'm getting at with this. And this is kind of the headline for this episode for me. I would rather see us pay. Let's not get stuck on names, but if you're going Trey Smith, you can't do this. I'd rather pay that center. If he's the best center and they agree to it, fine. Let's pay him $12 million a year. That's where the market is at right now. Let's pay him $12-13 million a year. Let's pay that right guard $10 million a year. Let's pay that left guard $10 million a year. That's $33 million when you have $65 million.
In a vacuum, that sounds really good. But again, if we lump on my idea that the salary cap is a myth, you could front load some money to someone, back load to the other. I don't see why signing Trey Smith prohibits you from signing another top flight.
But you're
option
hemorrhaging your future when you do that. You don't want to do that until you have a Super Bowl window. And as much as Bears fans want to act like we're in the Super Bowl window now, we aren't there yet. We're still in the rebuild. This is not the time to hemorrhage the future for the now. I say you take 3 good contracts, and then you still have other places you have to sign other players. Like, say we get even if we go get Rondell Moore for cheap, that's going to add to it. And then nose tackle or defensive end, there's got to be other places spent. I'd rather spend and get good starters, like 6 or 7 really good starters with that $65 million, and then draft to back up. You develop players. Like, obviously your first rounder is not going to be a backup. He'll be the spot where maybe he's Ashton Genty. For all of you who love Ashton Genty, this is not my path. That's not what I agree to. But say you fill all these other spots with $10 million contracts, then you can go get Ashton Genty. And then in the second round, you can get Caleb Johnson or Omarion Hampton or Travion Henderson. And then you can get a wide receiver in the third round, or you can get Arroyo as a tight end. I mean, that just gives you so many options when you don't overspend on one player during a rebuild. If we were one player away, I would agree with you. Restructure that cap, make it work, bring that guy in. He's our missing link. Let's lay it down. And again, guys, beginning of the show, I'm not right. Karl's not right. Who knows what's going to happen? There's so many options, but that's the path I would love to see. Someone like Zeitler at right guard, even Drew Dahlman, if they like him. I like Coleman Shelton still as a developmental guy that, you can have a rookie learn behind. But if they're filling Drew Dahlman at 26, his run blocking is phenomenal, better than anybody else, and we can fix his pass pro. Great, bring in him. Bring in a good left guard. Tevin Jenkins is really the best left guard in this free agent class. Bring back Tevin, who signs on a hometown discount of $12 million a year, and then you can draft these guys in the third round, in the second round to learn. You can still get Tyler Booker to play behind Tevin Jenkins if you're worried about the injury. Learn behind him, not have to start day one, and then if Tevin does get hurt, then he can come fill in and be the starting left guard. That's just,
I think if the Bears spend a first or second round asset on an offensive lineman, that asset's going to be a part of the starting 5. And that's just my thought process there. I think that continuity is an important thing. I don't think that your center from this past year, Coleman Shelton, is the answer. But if you pair that as like essentially a stopgap, pairing with Trey Smith, who you don't have to worry about for the length of his contract outside of, God forbid, an injury, that's where I think that you can start to get a bit more economical and still have a strong 5, right? But I see what you mean about needing to sign a bunch of starters and backups. It's just in a vacuum, you'd want it to be as consistent and even, spread the wealth. I get that. But I don't know, man. Trey Smith just makes too much sense to me. And once you've got him, you don't have to worry about that position ideally. Again, like I said, God forbid, outside of an injury.
And then if he gets injured, we didn't have enough money to sign quality backups, and we're in the same situation we were in this year because
Well, that's where you'd have
depth.
some sort of draft pick behind him, and you'd also have a Swiss Army knife like a Matt Pryor, who can fill in for a game or two at guard, at tackle if needed. Again, God forbid.
Yeah, but you're talking about, and this is great. I love this conversation, this discourse. You're talking about, even your first round linemen, how well do they do their first year as a rookie?
I'm not asking for. Let's say we draft. I think I'd like this. The LSU tackle have Will Campbell be a guard at 10. I don't expect him to play at a Hall of Fame level, but again, I feel like if you invest in an asset that high, why shouldn't he start?
Well, he should, and that's what you do. You're going to start your first round, 10th pick overall,
or second round pick. I've seen Tyler Booker mocked to the Bears at 41 until the cows come home. I got a surprise for you. He's not getting past the Texans in the first round.
The other reason I really love this idea of signing, 3 guys on the offensive line and not having a rookie there is, if you solidify all these spots, let's go back to this screen here. If you solidify all those spots, your left guard, your center, your right guard, your wide receiver, your running back, let's say not the running back, but every other position, because you can get a running back in the second, third round. Sorry, it's cruising along here. Nose tackle, defensive. If we solidify most of those, you then have the flexibility as Ryan Poles to not have to do what you're saying in draft at number 10. You really can trade that back and not have the stress of having to have your high quality starter. Because what you're saying with Will Campbell completely makes sense. And that probably would be the logical spot. If we haven't filled that left guard spot in free agency, you're likely going to pick that left guard with number 1, 10 overall. As high as I feel like that is to reach for a guard, that's the reality of where we are with the very best guards in this league. They get drafted at the mid first round. That's where they're going to get drafted if you're going to start them day one. If you're not starting them day one and you're going to develop them, great. But if we don't fill that spot, you're probably going to have that first pick solidified with a Will Campbell type of pick.
I see Tammy in the chat. I agree with anyone who's saying trade down from 10. I mean, it's the logical choice. There's probably going to be a player that's worthy of someone trading up for. Might only be the Cowboys wanting to move up to 10 to ensure they can draft Ashton Genty. But what I've been hearing from this draft is, quality-wise, between picks 20 and 60, it's the same.
Oh, man,
so I would love for the Bears to load up on assets to be able to build a better roster. Don't get me wrong.
There's so many players that could be traded up for. If Tyler Warren is still there at 10, the Colts could trade up from 14 to 10 to take Tyler Warren. There's several teams that need a tight end.
In my favorite mock draft that I've done, the Bengals have traded up from 17 to 10 to draft the great Will Johnson out of Michigan. That's very plausible.
Yeah, if Will Johnson, hands down best corner, some people will say Travis Hunter. I understand the argument there, but
I'm a Michigan fan. I think Travis Hunter's a better cornerback than Will Johnson.
Arguably. I really like Will Johnson. I think Travis Hunter's the best utility knife, and I think he's going to be a great corner. I think he could be
in the past decade.
He could be a phenomenal cornerback for sure. Will Johnson's worth trading up for at 10. There's several players that could be worth trading up for there at 10, 100%.
Yeah, and the Bengals, they've got everything else figured out. They've got the quarterback figured out. You think that they're going to be able to retain their wide receivers now with the help of the franchise tag. So they just need a little bit on defense to help them propel them into the playoffs. And they've got the quarterback to make it happen in the playoffs. So, again, very, very plausible. Don't say I told you so first if it happens.
All right, Karl, I got to get to this one before we're done.
Okay.
And I'm not picking on you, Ethan. Explain this one to me. This Gray Zabel situation that's going on. This Gray Zabel.
I can explain it to you in layman's terms. He's a day 3 prospect that was overhyped by this damn Senior Bowl.
You agree with me, man.
Yeah. The Chicago Bears have needed a center since Olin Kreutz. I get it.
Agreed.
Gray Zabel. That's a fucking awesome name, man. Why can't he be our Olin Kreutz? It's because he's not good enough.
So
let him go day 3, guys.
Here's the funny thing. We're going to do this before we end up here. Let's go to college And I'm not picking on it. You each have your own opinions, but Gray Zabel, however you say his name, North Dakota State, 6'6", 305, so nothing special on size, probably a little bit too big for center, too height-wise. You want to see your center at 6'3", 6'4", so that they're lower, so they can crouch down better. You want to see him about 300 to 315, so he's a little lighter there. On tape, I've done extensive tape on him because I saw the hype. He gets skinny sometimes, and he gets he gets slaughtered. He gets beat. Now, the level of competition he played, Colorado, good. He played Colorado Big 12 team. He ended up doing really well against them. Good job. Tennessee State did terrible against Tennessee State, who I don't even know what conference that is. Eastern Tennessee, good game. Towson, what the hell is Towson? I've never even heard of Towson. Do you know what Towson is?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir.
I have no idea what Towson is. Illinois State, North Dakota, Southern Illinois, South Dakota State.
Oh, man. I know
Murray
a
State.
certain someone on the Bears Country Productions panel who would absolutely have been able to see that game at Southern Illinois.
So a good season by all accounts for him. I mean, these stats pop off paper and look freaking amazing. The level of competition is terrible. What happened was in the Senior Bowl in practice. We're talking about practice. In practice, he looked like a warrior. And then some other content creators like to hype. They like to get the clickbait stuff. So they hyped up Gray Zabel. And then the game happened. And he got his ass handed to him by fourth-round prospects on the defensive line in the actual game. Sorry, Gray Zabel. And then you go look at players like this who didn't go to the Senior Bowl and are third-round prospects right now because of this one pure fact right here. He was backing up Cedric Don Pond Granger. And then he got his first year of starting, and he played at one of the most elite levels you'll see in the SEC. 5 total pressures, all of them the most minimal variety. In your severity of pressures, it goes sack is the worst, hits, and then hurries. Hurries are the least severe. 5 pressures this year on 431 pass block opportunities. If you watched my videos last year on Zach Frazier and Jackson Powers Johnson, this is what it hinged around. 5 on 431 opportunities is every 86 snaps he allows a pressure. 86 snaps is godly. Jared Wilson is going to be a steal for someone, and people like Gray Zabel are going to be going up our draft boards. Now, when you look at the Bears or the Chiefs or the Lions or whoever, their draft boards aren't the same as our mock draft simulators out here. They are very different. So, Karl, go ahead and explain this.
The reason that I brought this up is just because we're talking about an artificial rise in draft stock because of the media, the pundits, the content creators. Look at what's going on in just the case with this wide receiver, Matthew Golden out of Texas, right? The mocks, consistently, his stock was going down. He was a day 3 pick, mocked to go between rounds 5 and 7, and then something happened. I don't remember Matthew Golden standing out per se in the college football playoff. That's about this time frame, right? But now he's being mocked almost in the first round.
He did, though. He had some big games in the college football playoff.
Okay. Well, maybe that's what it was, right? But it's still, this feels a bit artificial to me, and I feel like this could be directly applied to Gray Zabel.
I'm not picking on you at all, Ethan. I hope you didn't take that as me picking on you. It's just I'm trying to prove a point with Jared Wilson. Just because we haven't seen him in the Senior Bowl, I mean, I am all in on Jared Wilson. And if the Bears take him with one of their second-round picks, I'm all for it. Now, I've already hyped up Wyatt Milam, however you say his last name. Now, you can only take so much from these stats, okay? PFF gives you a limited scope, and I'll be the first to tell you that. I freaking love Wyatt Milam. The only thing that stands out to me is a little concern is that first game, which is the first game of the season. You can kind of excuse it a little bit. He did look a little off balance against none other than Abdul Carter. But for me, Wyatt Milam, you move him inside, and that kick slide of his isn't nearly as important. You move him to left guard. I would freaking love to draft Wyatt Milam in the second round as our left guard.
That's what I'm talking about. If you've got an interior offensive line of Trey Smith, Coleman Shelton, and Wyatt Milam, are you going to open up a diary and start pouring your heart out? No, you're going to be happy about that.
Pouring your heart out. Same thing here. And I'm glad you brought him up, Ethan, because same thing. Lowest variety. And then last year, consistently lowest variety last year as well. 8. The year before that, 14. No sacks in 3 years. 6 over 356 pass blocking opportunities. And that's at left tackle. When you move him into left guard, it's an easier position to play against the sacks. Your sacks should be the highest from this order: tackle, guard, then center. You should have the least sacks from your center, then the guards, and then your tackles from outside in being the most. You don't want any sacks, but there's going to be sacks. But I'm all in on Wyatt Milam, man. If we snag Wyatt Milam, there's so many good converted tackle to guard players in this draft, in my opinion. So many freaking good ones. There's so much.
My mock draft featured Omarion Hampton, Wyatt Milam, and Landon Jackson. I don't think that's going to be realistic because the more I think about it, if Ashton Jeanty goes undeservedly to the Cowboys at 12, how can the Chargers let Omarion Hampton past him? Like there's going to be some good players that we're talking about nowadays that you're going to be like, he went where? So every year it happens. We're winding down here. We will get into more after the free agency starts. Karl and I are going to cover more of the draft on here. We're going to get into a lot more of this. We kind of go everywhere with this limited series we're going to do. So I do appreciate it. We are going to wrap it up. I want to say thank you in the chat to all of you guys. We're going up longer again. I apologize, Karl. We're keeping you longer than I promised you that I will. Nothing to be sorry about, man. Like I said, I really appreciate just your. If we did this, I would do this offline, unrecorded, if you wanted to. I appreciate you spending your time with me. Honor and a privilege. And same to you, chat. Thank you guys so much for all the participation. You guys are fantastic, man.
Yeah, this is great. So appreciate all of you guys. Just the things coming up. We wanted to show this in the beginning. NFL Combine will be starting next week, technically the 24th, but you won't see anything on the players till the 27th, which is 1 week from today. So, Karl, actually next week, I'm heading down to spring training. I was going to head Thursday. Sorry, this is rolling. Boom. Let's go back here. I was going to head down. Maybe I'll leave Friday morning because I can still get there for the Cubs. The Cubs play at noon Pacific time. So we'll still do this as scheduled next week. Right here at this time. I was going to say maybe I'll leave early and get down there and do it from the hotel, but it'd be easier to do it here, and then I'll just leave early in the morning.
If you need some flexibility, I'm flexible, so keep that in mind. But
we got this. But there's your upcoming stuff coming up. You got the Combine, and then right after that, you're going to have the negotiating period on the 10th, which is 18 days from right now, so 2.5 weeks. That's when you're going to start hearing of the signings. The signings can't happen until Wednesday the 12th, but you will hear of Trey Smith in principle has agreed to sign with the Bears.
Yeah. You're going to get those notifications within the first minute of it starting, just like with DeAndre Swift. And you're also going to have an Anthony Barr situation where there is a signing and then he's flipped. So it's going to be a very fun period. That might be the favorite part of the offseason for me, is that legal tampering period. I love it.
Yeah, I'm going to go live on that day, just so you guys know. On the 10th, I will be live. And then that's you're going to hear that right when it starts, which is 4 p.m. I believe, 1 p.m. or Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be live for that. We'll break down where that fits into the Bears roster. We'll show you on here where that fits in with where they sign, where they fit in on the Bears, where they could be a part of this team, and we'll show the salary cap implications as the contracts come out. We'll do all that stuff on here, so it'll be a lot of fun. But again, Karl, appreciate you. It's so much fun to have you on here. Those who haven't looked in the description, Karl's channel, Thy and Smi, Karl with Bears Country Productions. They're going to be on in a half hour from right now. Their show will be on, so check that out. Go subscribe to both of Karl's channels, Bears Country Productions and Thy and Smi. It mean a lot to me if you did that, and I appreciate you guys. If you haven't hit the like button, do that for the algorithm on this one, and thank you for tuning in, Karl. Again, thank you for being here.
Yep, could never say thank you enough, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, we're gonna end this thing. We did a cold open. We're gonna do a cold close. So see you guys next week.